If you are near a window tonight, do not look up. I am repeating that because I have been on the air at AM 1720 TLF for 19 years. And I have never said those words before. Do not look at the moon. Something is looking back. And tonight, authorities believe it is answering a message we were never told was sent. This program is a work of fiction. The station, broadcast, and events you are about to hear are not real. This audio is created for narrative and entertainment purposes only. This is AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast. If you are hearing this transmission, emergency conditions are ongoing. Good evening. This is AM 1720 TLF broadcasting live from the studio on Hartwell Road, just outside the city limits. The time is 8:30 on a Monday evening, the third week of October, and from where I sit, the sky is doing exactly what the sky is supposed to do at this hour. Clear, cold, ordinary. My name is Walter Mast. Some of you have heard me on this frequency for almost 20 years now. For those tuning in for the first time, welcome. We keep things simple here. Weather, traffic, community notices, school closures when we have them, road work when the county remembers to tell us, the occasional caller who wants to report a coyote near a chicken coop or argue about the high school football schedule. That is the job. That has always been the job. Tonight's forecast is straightforward. Temperatures across Hartwell County will fall into the low 40s by midnight, with a light wind moving east-southeast at approximately 6 miles per hour. No precipitation is expected. Skies will remain clear through the early morning. The Farmer's Almanac, for those who still trust such things, and I am one of them, notes that we are 2 nights past the full moon. The waning gibbous tonight should rise just before 9, slightly south of due east, and it should be, by every ordinary account, unremarkable. Traffic is quiet. The bridge work on County Route 12 has wrapped for the evening, and Hartwell County deputies have cleared the earlier stalled vehicle on the eastbound stretch near mile marker 18. The driver is fine. A flat tire, nothing more. For community notices, the Maplewood Volunteer Fire Department will be holding its annual pancake fundraiser this Saturday morning, beginning at 7. The Ashford Hills Public Library has extended evening hours through the end of the month. The Cedar Grove Astronomy Club has asked us to remind listeners that their telescope viewing event, originally scheduled for tonight on the bluff above Hollow Brook, has been postponed. I will read their note as written. Due to unexpected atmospheric interference detected in our equipment during this afternoon's calibration run, the Cedar Grove Astronomy Club has chosen to reschedule tonight's lunar observation. Members are advised to keep their instruments stowed until further notice. Atmospheric interference. That is the wording they sent over. I have read a lot of astronomy club notices in my time on this dial. Usually it is cloud cover. Sometimes it is rain. Once, if I remember correctly, someone forgot the key to the gate and 20 people stood on a hill with expensive telescopes and nowhere to point them. But atmospheric interference is a new one. Still, that is the notice, and I am not in the business of editing other people's announcements. Moving on. It is now 8:47 p.m., and we have received our first unusual call of the evening. A woman from the Willow Creek subdivision, just west of the river, contacted the station a few minutes ago. She asked that we use only her first name, Diane, and we are happy to oblige. According to Diane, she had been finishing the dishes at her kitchen window when she noticed something she could not quite place. She described it not as a sight, exactly, but as a feeling. The light coming in through the glass above her sink, she said, was the wrong color. Not brighter, not dimmer, just wrong. as though someone had turned a dial somewhere. She could not see and shifted the temperature of the moonlight by a single degree. She stepped onto the back porch to check. The moon was where it should have been, low over the tree line behind the Wexler property. But the light it cast did not match what her eyes expected. The shadows on her lawn were sharper than they should have been at that angle. And the grass beneath them looked, in her words, like a photograph someone had left out in the rain. She is a retired school teacher. She made a point of telling us she is not prone to imagination. She wanted to know whether anyone else had called with anything similar. At this time, Diane, you are the only caller to report that specific observation. But we have logged the report. If anyone else in Willow Creek, Maplewood, Ashford Hills, Cedar Grove, Pine Heights, or anywhere within the listening range of AM 1720 TALF has noticed unusual moonlight, unusual radio interference, or abnormal behavior from household electronics, please contact the non-emergency line. Do not call 911 unless there is an immediate danger. We are here until midnight, as always. At least, that was the schedule. I want to follow up on Diane's call before we return to the community calendar. I have just received a relayed message from the Hartwell County Sheriff's non-emergency desk. Approximately 20 minutes before Diane called this station, a separate resident of Willow Creek, a man on Birch Street 2 blocks south of Diane's address, requested a welfare check on his elderly neighbor. He told dispatch that he had been walking past her house when he noticed the front door standing open, the porch light on, and a pair of slippers placed neatly on the welcome mat. No one answered when he knocked. Deputies arrived at the residence at 8:31 p.m. They entered the home and conducted a full walkthrough. The kettle on the stove was still warm. A television was playing the evening news at low volume in the back room. A reading lamp was on beside an open book in the recliner. No one was found inside the home. No signs of struggle. No signs of forced entry. The back door was locked from within. The neighbor's car was in the garage. Her purse was on the kitchen counter, her phone beside it. Authorities are treating this, at present, as a missing person inquiry of unknown origin. The neighbor's name is being withheld pending family notification. Deputies have asked any Willow Creek residents who saw the woman this evening to contact the sheriff's office through the non-emergency line. That is the update. I want to be careful here. A retired teacher, remarking on the quality of moonlight, is not the same thing as a missing elderly woman. Hartwell County is a small place, and on any given Monday, the connection between two unusual events on the same block is usually nothing more than coincidence. Still, I am noting both on the air, in the order they came in. That is what we do here at AM 1720 TLF. We log what we hear, we pass it along. We let authorities do their work, and we wait for facts to catch up. We will return after a brief pause with the rest of tonight's programming. Stay with us. It is now 9:13 p.m. We are interrupting regular programming for a short technical advisory. Several listeners have reported a faint rhythmic tone beneath our broadcast. Our engineer, Marcus Hale, has checked the studio board, the auxiliary line, and the local relay feed. At this time, the tone is not originating from our equipment. That does not mean it is dangerous. Radio interference happens. Signals overlap. Old wiring behaves badly when the air gets cold. People sometimes hear patterns where there are only mechanical faults, but the reports are consistent enough that we should acknowledge them. A listener driving through Riverbend reported hearing 3 short pulses followed by 1 longer tone while tuned to this station. She changed stations. The pulse remained. She turned the volume down. The pulse softened but did not disappear. A second listener in Pine Heights reported the same pattern, through a kitchen radio that had not been used in years. 3 short pulses, 1 longer tone. We have also received a note from Cedar Grove Astronomy Club. Their members are asking residents not to point telescopes, binoculars, or long lens cameras at the moon tonight until their equipment issue is understood. Again, this is not a county order. It is a recommendation from a private astronomy group, but it is a reasonable one. If you were planning to view the moon tonight, consider postponing. The sky will still be there tomorrow. That is not a guarantee I expected to feel strange saying. We are back on the air here at AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast, and the time is approaching 9:30 Monday evening. In the last 20 minutes, our switchboard has received 4 separate calls from 4 different neighborhoods, none of which are within direct line of sight of one another. I want to walk through them in order, because the pattern, if there is one, is becoming difficult to ignore. The first came from a young man in Pine Heights, on the north side of the county. He works the late shift at the distribution warehouse off Route 9, and he had stepped out into the parking lot at approximately 9:15. He told us the moon appeared to be the wrong size, not larger, not smaller, just proportioned incorrectly, in a way he could not describe. He stood in the parking lot for several minutes, trying to talk himself out of the feeling, before he came back inside and called us, instead of his supervisor. The second call came from a woman driving along the river road through Riverbend. She told us her dashboard radio had begun to pick up a faint, rhythmic tone underneath our broadcast. A soft pulse, she said, like a heartbeat through a wall. She tuned away from AM 1720 TLF to check other stations. The pulse, she reported, was on every one of them. The third was a father in Northwood, calling on behalf of his 8-year-old daughter, who had woken up and refused to go back to bed. The child told him there was a face in her bedroom window. When he checked, he saw nothing. The window faces east. The moon, at that hour, would have been rising directly into that frame. The fourth caller was a hunter at the edge of the Hollow Brook Conservation Land. He reported that the deer in the field below his stand had stopped moving at the same moment, roughly 40 minutes ago, and were standing in a loose circle, all facing the same direction. They had not moved since. He was calling because he did not feel comfortable climbing down. We are not suggesting these accounts share one cause. We are saying they now share one night. We reached out to a contact at the Cedar Grove Astronomy Club. I want to share what was said, because I think it is relevant. The contact, a longtime amateur astronomer named Harold P., confirmed what their earlier notice suggested. At approximately 3:15 this afternoon, during a routine calibration of one of their reflector telescopes, the club's equipment registered what he called an anomalous albedo shift across the lunar surface. In simpler terms, the moon reflected more light than it should have been able to reflect, for 11 seconds. Then it returned to normal. He stressed, repeatedly, that this should not be possible. Lunar reflectivity is governed by the composition of the surface and the angle of the sun. Short of something physically altering the surface of the moon in the middle of an October afternoon, there is no obvious mechanism by which the reading they recorded could exist. I asked him, plainly, whether he had an explanation. He said, "No explanation has been determined at this time." I asked if the equipment could have malfunctioned. He told me 3 separate telescopes recorded the same reading. I asked if anyone else had reported the same anomaly. He paused on the line for a long moment. Then he told me the club had been in contact with 2 other observation groups, one in Clearwater County and one in Lincoln County, and both had logged the same 11-second event, same time, down to the second. I thanked Harold for his candor and ended the call. Let me take a breath here. I want to remind our listeners that the function of this station is to report what is reported to us. We are not in the business of speculation. We do not have a science desk. We do not have the credentials to interpret what an albedo shift means, or whether what Diane saw in Willow Creek tonight has anything to do with what Harold's Club recorded this afternoon. What we have is a log, and the log at the moment is filling up. It is now 9:58 p.m. We have received a message from a retired engineer in Belmont who asked that his full name not be used. He stated that he worked on instrumentation contracts in the early 1960s and recognized tonight's pulse pattern from archived telemetry material. We are not verifying that claim. We are reporting it as one caller's account. The caller used a phrase I want to handle carefully: Project A119. For listeners unfamiliar with that name, Project A119 refers to a Cold War-era study publicly associated with the possibility of detonating a nuclear device on or near the lunar surface. The publicly known purpose was not military destruction in the usual sense, but visibility, a demonstration that could be seen from Earth during the early years of the space race. Publicly available accounts describe the project as theoretical, canceled, never carried out. The caller from Belmont disputed only one part of that. He did not say the detonation happened. He did not say he had proof. He said, and I am quoting only the phrase he repeated twice, "Some experiments are not canceled. They are postponed." Then the line filled with static. When we attempted to call him back, the line rang once and disconnected. We have passed his number and account to Hartwell County Emergency Management. At this time, authorities have not connected tonight's events to Project A119, but they have also asked this station to avoid playing unverified recordings of the pulse on air. That request has been received and will be honored. I have a follow-up to share, and I am going to share it carefully. At approximately 9:40 p.m., we received a call from a man in Ashford Hills, Daniel R., a 42-year-old shift supervisor at the Regional Water Authority. He had been outside on his deck, observing the moon with a pair of binoculars his son had given him for his birthday last spring. He told us that when he focused the binoculars, the lunar surface appeared, in his words, perforated. He said there were small dark points on the visible face that he could not identify. They were not craters. He knew what craters looked like. These were arranged in a pattern. He described them as resembling the holes in a speaker grill. I asked him to stop looking. He did not answer immediately. Then, he said he had counted 17 points before he had to stop, because it felt like the points were counting him back. He went quiet on the line for several seconds. Then he said he was going to hang up and bring the binoculars inside. We have called Daniel R. back twice in the last 15 minutes. The line rings. No one answers. We have asked the sheriff's office to send a deputy by his address as a welfare check. We are awaiting word. That is now the second welfare check in Hartwell County tonight. The first, as some of you will remember, was on Birch Street in Willow Creek. As of our most recent update, the elderly woman from that residence has not been located. 2 missing persons in a county of 40,000 people on a Monday in October is not by itself a pattern, but 4 anomalous calls within an hour, an unexplained astronomical reading this afternoon, a hum on our broadcast band, and a Cold War project name surfacing through multiple unrelated callers. That is worth your attention. This is AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast, and we are going to remain on the air past midnight tonight. I want my wife, Eleanor, who I know may be listening from our house on Marrow Road. Ellie, If you can hear me, lock the front door. I will explain when I get home. We will continue after a short pause. It is now 10:29 p.m. The county has issued a voluntary indoor advisory for Willow Creek, Ashford Hills, Pine Heights, and Hollow Brook. This is not a shelter order. Residents are advised to remain indoors, avoid standing at open windows facing east, and refrain from photographing or magnifying the moon. If curtains are available, close them. If curtains are not available, move away from direct moonlight. The advisory also includes a sentence I am reading exactly as provided. Do not respond to voices heard from outside the home, even if the voice appears familiar. That instruction is unusual. We have requested clarification. In the last 10 minutes, we received 3 additional reports from residents in Northwood and Maplewood, claiming that radios in their homes activated without physical contact. In each case, the radio produced the same pattern: 3 short pulses, 1 longer tone. In one Maplewood residence, after the pulse, a faint voice was heard beneath the static. The caller said it did not sound like a person speaking into a microphone. It sounded like a recording played through water. The phrase was difficult to understand, but the caller believes it said 2 words: visibility achieved. We are not confirming the phrase. We are stating that it has now been reported by more than one household. A second listener in Pine Heights heard something similar through a disconnected baby monitor kept in a closet. A third listener in Riverbend heard the phrase through his truck radio while the ignition was off. Again, we are not confirming the phrase, but we are confirming the consistency of the reports. To reiterate, if a device in your home begins producing static, pulses, or speech without input, do not place your ear near it. Lower the volume if you can do so safely. Leave the room if the device uses your name. And please, for the time being, do not look at the moon. The time here at the station is just past 11 o'clock Monday night, and I am going to use the next few minutes to give the most complete picture I can of what has been reported across our coverage area. We have received, by Marcus's count, 63 calls since 9:30. That is more than this station has logged in any single evening in the 19 years I have worked here. I want to thank our overnight operator, Janet, who came in 2 hours early and is fielding calls in the next room as I speak. She has not stopped to sit down. The geography of the reports has expanded. Earlier in the broadcast, calls were concentrated in 4 neighborhoods within Hartwell County. As of the last 40 minutes, AM 1720 TLF has received reports from listeners in Clearwater County to the north, Marrow County to the southwest, and as far east as the small towns along the Lincoln County line. The pattern, if I can use that word, appears to be radiating outward. Or perhaps it was always this large, and we simply did not have ears in the other places until tonight. The reports share consistent features. People are describing the moon as wrong, not in any single way. Some say it appears too sharp at the edges, as though it has been cut out of the sky. Others say its color has shifted slightly toward yellow, or green, or toward a color they cannot name. Several callers, independently, have used the phrase, the wrong distance. When pressed, they cannot say what they mean. Only that the moon tonight does not feel as far away as it usually does. Animals are behaving abnormally. The hunter, near Hollow Brook, called back to report that the deer still have not moved. A woman in Eastwood says her 2 dogs have been sitting at the back door for over an hour, staring at the yard, refusing to come inside. A dairy farmer in the Clearwater County uplands reports that his herd has gathered at the western edge of the pasture and is, in his words, leaning, and the hum continues. We have received calls from listeners on 3 other AM frequencies in the region, telling us the same pulse is audible on their stations. A ham radio operator in Pine Heights tells us the tone is bleeding into shortwave bands as well. He has never heard anything like it in 50 years of operation. I want to share an update from the Hartwell County Emergency Management Office. They have asked us to relay the following to all listeners within the coverage area of AM 1720 TLF. At approximately 10:45 this evening, the traffic camera network maintained by the county along the major arterials, including Route 9, County Route 12, and the bridge corridor over the Mason River, went dark. Not offline, not blank. According to the technician on shift, the cameras are still transmitting. The feeds are still active. The image being received from every one of them, however, is identical. A flat, evenly lit gray field. No movement, no variation, no timestamp drift. Shortly after, security cameras at the county courthouse stopped recording normal images and began recording something the technician described as the inside of a seashell. He could not be more specific. Cellular service across portions of the county is intermittent. Landlines, for reasons Marcus cannot explain, are still functional. The internet connection at this station has dropped twice in the last 10 minutes and recovered each time. Emergency services are responding to a higher than normal call volume. The sheriff's office has activated additional patrol units. The state police barracks in Clearwater have been notified. There has been no official statement from the governor's office, and we are not expecting one at this hour. I will tell you what authorities are advising. Remain indoors. Do not stand at open windows facing east. If you have curtains, draw them. If you do not, hang a sheet, a towel, anything that blocks direct line of sight between yourself and the sky. Do not photograph the moon. Do not point telescopes, binoculars, camera lenses, or phone cameras at it. If you have already done so tonight, set those instruments somewhere they will not catch your eye. I am repeating these instructions because they are not the kind of instructions I am used to giving. Please listen. I want to take a moment to address something directly, because at least a dozen callers in the last half hour have brought it up by name, and I would rather speak to it plainly than let it become rumor. The phrase being mentioned is Project A119. For those of you unfamiliar here, Project A119 was a study commissioned in the late 1950s by the United States Air Force. Its formal title, declassified decades later, was a study of lunar research flights. Its purpose was to investigate the feasibility and visible effects of detonating a nuclear device on or near the surface of the moon. The intent, as publicly described, was a demonstration of capability during the early years of the space race. The project was, by available historical accounts, never carried out. It was shelved. The papers were filed away. The matter was closed. I am reading from a reference document Janet pulled for me. And I want to stress that nothing in the public historical record suggests this project advanced beyond a theoretical study. But I also need to tell you what has changed. At 11:13 p.m., the County Communications Office sent a private advisory to local broadcasters asking us not to speculate about lunar detonation mythology. That phrase did not come from this station. It came from the advisory, Lunar Detonation Mythology. At 11:17 p.m., Marcus isolated the pulse beneath our broadcast and slowed it to quarter speed. We are not playing that recording on air. We do not know what effect it may have on listeners. But at reduced speed, the long tone after the 3 short pulses contains internal modulation. It is not one long tone, it is divided. 3 outward, 1 returned. That is Marcus's wording. Outward. Returned. At 11:19 p.m., the same Maplewood listener who first reported the phrase visibility achieved called back. Her radio, she said, produced one additional sentence before shutting off. We received. That was all. We received. I am not going to interpret that for you. I will only say this is, if Project A119 was a message, then tonight's signal is behaving less like interference and more like a reply. There is a development I need to share, and I am going to share it slowly because I want to get the wording right. In the last 20 minutes, the hum beneath our carrier signal has begun to modulate. It is no longer a steady pulse. It is patterned. Marcus has recorded a sample on the studio reel-to-reel and played it back at half speed in the next room. At half speed, the pulse resolves into something that resembles, and I am being as careful as I can with this word, speech. It is not English. It is not, as far as Marcus can determine, any language he recognizes. The cadence is wrong for human speech. The pauses fall in the wrong places. The consonants, if they are consonants, are too long. But the rhythm of it, he tells me, is unmistakable. Something is saying something. On a frequency we did not open. Through equipment we did not invite. I am not going to play the recording on air. Whatever is on that tape, we do not know what it does to a person who hears it. We do not know what it does to a person hearing it through a radio at 11 o'clock on a Monday night, with their windows uncovered. I am not willing to find out using our listeners as the experiment. At 11:31 p.m., a deputy reached Daniel R.'s residence in Ashford Hills. The front door was unlocked. The binoculars were on the kitchen table. Daniel was not inside. The deputy found one detail he has authorized us to report. On the glass of the sliding door leading to the deck, someone had written with a fingertip through condensation. Not a sentence, a number. Below it, another line. Tonight, we are not drawing conclusions. We are telling you what was found. I am going to step away from procedure for a moment, because I owe you honesty. About 4 minutes ago, the studio motion light outside our front door, which faces the parking lot here on Hartwell Road, switched on. There is no one in the lot. Marcus checked the security feed before it joined the rest of the dark cameras in the county. The lot was empty. The light is still on. The studio is 15 minutes west of the broadcast tower on Bell Hill. We are surrounded on 3 sides by farmland. On a normal Monday night, the only thing that triggers that motion light is a raccoon, or the wind moving a cardboard box across the gravel. I do not know what is in the parking lot. I am going to keep broadcasting. That is the job. I want to say something to my wife, Eleanor, in case she is still listening at home on Marrow Road. Ellie, if you are awake, I need you to go to the basement. The basement door has a deadbolt on the inside. Use it. Take the flashlight from the drawer beside the stove. Take the radio from the laundry shelf, but keep it low. Do not stand near the small window by the water heater. Do not look through it. I will come home as soon as the broadcast is finished. I promise you that. I have never broken a promise to you in 31 years, and I am not going to start tonight. This is AM 1720 TLF. The last frequency emergency broadcast. We will remain on air. Please stay indoors. Please do not look up. It is now 12:26 a.m., early Tuesday morning. We have received an emergency relay file from an unidentified source. It did not come from Hartwell County. It did not come from the State Communications Office. It appeared in the relay queue without sender information. Marcus opened it on an isolated terminal, disconnected from the studio network. The file name was A119 WAS log. We are not treating this as authentic. It may be a hoax. It may be malware. It may be an old file renamed by someone trying to exploit fear during a public emergency. We will not read the full contents on air, but 2 lines match information already received from multiple sources. The first line is the pulse pattern, 3 outward, 1 returned. The second line is the phrase heard through household radios. Visibility achieved. At 12:29 a.m., a second file appeared. It contained no audio, no text, only a date stamp, then tonight's date, then one sentence. The answer was delayed. That phrase has now been forwarded to authorities. The county communications office has not responded to our last 3 messages. The state police press line in Clearwater is no longer answering. The National Weather Service emergency channel is broadcasting a single calibration tone and has been doing so for approximately 19 minutes. That is where we are. Not silence, not quite, but fewer people answering. This is AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast. We are still here. We are holding the carrier. The time is just past 1 in the morning, Tuesday. We are still on the air at AM 1720 TLF. I want to update you on what we know, and I want to be honest about what we do not. In the last hour, our switchboard has stopped ringing. That sounds like a relief. It is not. From 9:30 until just before midnight, the calls came in faster than Janet could log them. At 12:52, the last call ended. Since then, the lines have been quiet. We have tested them. They are functioning. People are simply not calling. I do not know if that means there is nothing left to report. I do not know if it means the people who were going to call have stopped being in a position to do so. I am telling you both possibilities, because both are on my mind. The Emergency Management Office in Hartwell has not responded to our last relayed message. The State Police Barracks in Clearwater no longer answers the press line. Cellular service is down across much of the county. Landlines remain unreliable but active. We are running on the studio generator, which Marcus topped off at midnight and which should last until sunrise. Sunrise by the almanac is at 6:53. At 1:06 a.m., AM 1720 TLF received another relay file. This one was audio. We did not play it. Marcus isolated it and viewed the waveform only. The waveform matched my speaking cadence from earlier tonight, but the file duration was longer than anything I have recorded. It appears to contain this broadcast continuing past the present moment. A future segment. That should not be possible. The State Communications Office has instructed us not to open the file if similar material appears. We have complied. The file name was After. No one here has listened to it. No one here will. If you encounter a recording online claiming to be leaked future audio from this station, do not play it. Do not share it. Do not compare it against the live broadcast. The event may be using repetition, imitation, or prediction as a method of entry. That is not an official scientific description. That is the safest language I have. I am going to tell you plainly what is happening inside this building. Janet, our overnight operator, is sitting in the call room with the door open. She has not taken a call in over an hour, but she is staying at her desk. She is steady. She does not rattle. I want to thank her on the air, because I do not know if I will have another chance. Marcus has been monitoring the broadcast signal continuously. In the last 15 minutes, he has reported that the modulated pulse beneath our carrier is slowing. The intervals between patterned sounds are lengthening. At half speed, he says the speech, if that is what it is, now contains pauses long enough that they feel almost intentional. He says they sound like someone waiting for an answer. The motion light outside the front door has been on continuously since just before midnight. The light at the rear of the building, facing the field behind the studio, came on at 12:41. Marcus has not gone to either door. I have asked him not to. There is a window in this booth. It is high on the wall, narrow, facing east. I have not looked through it in 3 hours. I am not going to look through it. I am telling you this because I want you to do the same with whatever window is nearest to you. Do not look. Whatever you think you might miss by not looking, you will not miss it. It will still be there in the morning, if there is a morning. And if it is the kind of thing that needs to be looked at, it will find a way to be seen without your help. At 1:39 a.m., the telephone on the production desk rang. That telephone has not been connected since the station moved routing systems last year. It rang 3 times, then once. Marcus unplugged the handset before I could reach it. That was the correct decision. The phone rang again while unplugged. It has stopped now. At approximately 1:15, Marcus came into the booth and asked me to step into the hallway. I did. He told me quietly that he had been listening to the slowed recording of the modulated pulse, and that at the lowest playback speed our equipment will support, he had identified a sequence of sounds repeated 3 times in succession. It resembled a word. I asked him what word. He told me it was again. He told me he was not sure. It could be coincidence. The human ear is built to find patterns, even where there are none. The slowed audio is degraded and full of artifacts. He told me he wanted me to know. He also told me he did not want me to put it on air. I am putting it on air anyway because I think you have the right to know what we are hearing. And because if I am wrong about that, it may not matter for very much longer. The implication, if Marcus is correct, is not one I am equipped to interpret. I will not speculate about whether something we did, or considered doing, or studied and shelved, has been remembered by something that does not forget. I will say only this. The retired engineer used the word postponed. The signal used the word again. The radios used the phrase visibility achieved. And now the files are calling themselves response logs. At 1:22 a.m., the Belmont Observatory in Clearwater County transmitted one final message before its feed went dark. The message read, "Tell them the moon is not the source." That was all. Tell them the moon is not the source. Then what is it? A mirror? A witness? No. That is speculation. Let me restate. Officials have not identified the source of the signal. The moon remains visually associated with the event, but technical evidence suggests the signal may be entering local equipment through unknown means. Do not treat the moon as the transmitter. Do not treat it as harmless either. If you are still listening to AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast, I want to speak to you directly for a few minutes before we continue. My name is Walter Mast. I have been the Monday and Tuesday overnight host on this frequency since I was 36 years old. I am 55 now. My wife, Ellie, and I have lived in the same house on Marrow Road for 31 years. We have a daughter who lives in another state, and a dog named Pepper, who is, I assume, currently asleep at the foot of our bed. Ellie keeps a photograph on the corner of the kitchen counter, in a small wooden frame. It is the 3 of us at the lake the summer our daughter turned 12. I have looked at that photograph almost every morning for 2 decades. I keep a copy of it here, on the corner of my desk at the station. I turned it face down about 20 minutes ago, not because I do not want to see them, because the glass was reflecting the window behind me. I told you earlier, I have never broken a promise to my wife in 31 years. That is true. I told her I would come home when the broadcast was finished. I intend to keep that promise. But I want to be honest about something, and I want her to hear it if she is still listening. I do not know what is in the parking lot. I do not know what is at the back door of this building. I do not know what is on the other side of the small window in this booth that I am not going to look through. And I do not know what is going to happen between now and sunrise. What I know is this. For 19 years, I have sat in this booth on quiet Monday nights and read the weather, the traffic, the school notices, and the names of pancake fundraisers. I have considered it a small and useful thing to do for the people who tune in. I have always thought of you, the listeners, as a kind of company. I have pictured you in kitchens, in cars, in workshops behind houses, doing whatever you do in the evening, with my voice on in the background. I have liked the work for that reason. Tonight is the first night I have been afraid of being alone in this booth, and it is the first night I have been grateful, in a way I cannot quite describe, that you are out there listening. You are keeping me company the way I have tried to keep you company. I want you to know that. Ellie, if you are listening, stay in the basement. Do not come to the studio. Do not get in the car. Do not look through the small window by the water heater. If the radio uses my voice and tells you I am outside, wait. If the doorbell rings, wait. If Pepper starts growling at the stairs, keep your hand on his collar and wait. I will come home, but not through the basement door. Not before sunrise. The time is approaching 2:40 in the morning, Tuesday. In the last 20 minutes, the hum beneath our broadcast has stopped. Marcus has confirmed it. The carrier signal of AM 1720 TLF is clean. There is no pulse, no modulation, no patterned speech bleeding through from a frequency we did not open. I want to tell you this is a good sign. I am not sure it is. The motion lights outside the studio have switched off. All of them. At the same moment. The phones in the call room have begun to ring. All of them. At the same moment. Janet is not answering. I have asked her not to. She is sitting in the doorway of the booth with us now. She brought her coffee. The window high on the wall behind me, which faces east. I want to tell you I have not looked through it. That is still true. But the light coming through it has changed. I can see it on the wall opposite, where it falls in a small pale rectangle. The rectangle is brighter than it was an hour ago. It should not be brighter. The moon, by now, should be well past its highest point and beginning its descent toward the western horizon. The light on the wall, by every law I understand, should be dimming. It is not dimming. It is the color Diane from Willow Creek tried to describe at the beginning of this broadcast. A photograph left out in the rain. I understand now what she meant. I do not have a better way to say it than she did. At 2:43 a.m., the pulse returned, but the pattern has changed. It was 3 short pulses followed by 1 long tone. Now it is 1 long tone followed by 3 short pulses, 1 returned, 3 outward. Marcus says it is no longer repeating the original signal. It is initiating its own. That is all I am prepared to say. If you are out there, if you are still listening, I want you to do 3 things. First, do not look at the moon. Not through a window. Not through a doorway. Not reflected in a phone screen. Not in water. Not in glass. Not at all. Not tonight. Second, if someone you know asks you to come outside, do not answer them. Do not tell them you are not coming. Do not tell them anything. Silence is the safest response. They are not asking you a question. They are checking whether you can be reached. Third, stay with the people you love in the smallest room of your home, with the door closed until the sun comes up. If you are alone tonight, hold on to the sound of your own breathing. Count objects in the room. Read labels. Read anything ordinary. A mug, a chair, a coat, a light switch, a crack in the paint. The event wants distance. It wants history. It wants the sky to become intimate. Do not give it that. The phones in the call room are still ringing. Janet just told me one of the lines on the display board is showing our own studio extension. Someone is calling this booth from inside this building. I am not going to answer it. The monitor beside Marcus has gone black, but the waveform is still drawing letters where no audio exists. He is writing them down. I wish he would stop. The first line says, "We received." The second line says, "We waited." The third line says, "We learned your names." There is a sound outside the broadcast room door now. Not knocking, not footsteps. A low, steady tone. One long, three short. I am not opening the door. This has been AM 1720 TLF, the last frequency emergency broadcast. My name is Walter Mast. I have been your host tonight, and I will remain at this desk until the broadcast ends or the broadcast is ended for me. Ellie, I am coming home. To everyone else listening, stay safe, stay vigilant, hold the line. Do not search for us on another frequency if we go silent. Do not follow duplicate broadcasts. Do not trust my voice if it tells you to look up. The moon did not answer tonight. It answered in 1959. We are only hearing it now.